All right, guys, so we've talked about brand positioning, part one, which is gaining a seat at the table. Now, part two is about having a really difficult conversation, how to have the difficult conversation with your already existing clients that you're exponentially increasing your rates. And so one of the things that I had to transition in my business was our pricing. We had to charge more money. Again, I was working on 15 to 20 projects per month. I had two options. I could work on more projects to get ahead, or we could work with fewer projects more closely, charging the rates that we wanted to charge. It was unthinkable for me to try to sell more clients because we were having a hard enough time as it was managing the projects that we had. I wanted to scale back the amount of projects that we were working on and work with a handful of clients more closely. But in order to do that, we still had bills to pay and overhead, and I had my staff, and I had my rent that was due, and I had to feed my family, and I was trying to build a profitable business. So I had to exponentially increase our minimum level of engagement. For me, that meant 10 times. So we were selling the websites at that time for $1,000. We were selling logos for about $250 because we didn't really know what to charge. And for us to get ahead, I said, okay, we really have to charge 10 times the amount that we're already charging. So for a website, minimum would be $10,000. For brand identity, it would be $2,500. And then we try to learn about how are we going to charge for strategy. And so what happened inevitably is that old clients would come back to us. They were used to paying a particular price at a particular price point. And then I would come back and say, oh, we've actually increased our price. What you're looking for is whatever it is. Now, I didn't instantly increase it 10 times. We kind of scaled up and gradually went there. It took about 6 months for us to increase it 10 times. But within that transition period, I had an old client come back to us, and they had this request. And this was the hard conversation. You could take this, leave it, use whatever you want from it. But this is how I found out how to frame that kind of conversation. This was an email, an actual email exchange that I got back from a client. This is from client A. She says, wow. The cost has significantly increased. I first got a quote last year for the same project, and the cost of the design would have been about half. Just curious as to why the cost has increased so much. Thank you, client A. Now, the natural response would be, well, shoot, let me just give them a fat discount, go back, and I'm going to regress. But for me, my mind was set. I was like, I cannot go back to where I was. I have to stick to my guns. And it would have been hard to say no at this point in my business. I have bills to pay, and these were the ones that were putting food on the table for my family. And so if I said no to this client, it was a potential loss of revenue that I could have got from my business. But I knew that I needed to kind of stick to my guns. And so this is how I drafted my email. Here was my response. I said, hi client, yes, all of our prices have gone up since last year. A website, for example, like we built for you, would have been about double this year. And the reason is because I had to evaluate the cost per transaction of all our services. I know as a customer it's frustrating because you were used to one price point and now that's drastically changed, but I had to make a business decision because what I found is we were always busy but never getting ahead, and I realized our price points were far below market value for the level of work and service we were providing. Hopefully we could keep you as a customer, but I had to make that change at the beginning of the year for my business. As a returning long-time customer, I can give you a 15% discount on this project, which would bring the cost down to blank for design. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thank you for understanding. Regards, Sean. Now, the way I phrased this email was I just wanted to be upfront. And I figured that honesty for me is the best policy. I wanted to be 100% transparent. I didn't care if they knew that I was struggling as a business because it was the truth and I needed to get ahead. And I understood that if I was talking to a sympathetic business owner, they understand how this works. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to be completely honest, but I'm not going to just be honest in a rash way. I'm going to be sympathetic to their needs because I understand the frustration that they had. They were paying this cost and now I'm coming back with this other cost, and this is going to be frustrating for them. And so I embraced their feelings of frustration. I completely understand, and I was being sympathetic towards that. I get your frustration, but this is the reason why, and there's rationale behind it. And understanding this, I was willing to compromise. So instead of going back down to the price I would have offered last year, I just went down 15% and letting her know that this is just what our minimum level of engagement is today. And I was just kind of leaving it on the table, killing the engagement if I had to. And here's what her response to me was. Thank you so much for taking the time to respond so quickly. As a fellow business owner, I do appreciate what you're talking about in taking a look at the numbers and evaluating the cost per transaction. Glad to hear you guys are succeeding and busy. I do appreciate the high quality service I've received from Butler. I'll take you up on your offer and accept the discount for design. I'll call the office to make payment this afternoon. Now again, this is a script that worked for me, and it didn't work 100% of the time. I did have to say no to some projects, and that's something that you're gonna have to evaluate as a business. You know, if saying no to this project means you're not gonna make rent this month, well, that's something you have to weigh out. But for me, in this particular situation, I knew that I had to stick to my guns, and the way I did that was being sympathetic towards their feelings, but sticking to it and then offering them a compromise, which was a discount for this one time, and it ended up working. So this is how you can have that hard conversation and gain a seat at the table.